Brothers in Tech is a weekly podcast focused on personal and home technology, helping provide you, our fellow brothers and sisters in tech, with some information, assistance, and recommendations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brothers in Tech here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, and over this side to my I'm saying to my left, but I know people watching it have informed me that really you're to the right of me on the screen.
To the right of you.
Right, just so everybody understand, we're kind of working with some opposite cameras going on here. So he is on my left when I'm looking over here, but you're on the right on the screen. Regardless, it's Brian Jackson. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. Okay, you know what? You did everything just right until the very end where you said, it's Brian Jackson. You actually
it's Brian.
Gestured the other direction.
Oh, I did,
so
right.
Everything was good. Everything was good
Brian
until
Jackson,
then. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's Brian right there. Hey, yo, Brian, what's up? So yeah. How you doing?
You know what? It's this adding video just added a whole layer of complexity to what we do. But
I can't decide if it's a good layer of complexity to what we do or if it's actually more tripping us up. But we're getting used to it, I think. I think we're doing okay with it, right?
Yeah. No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, we're catching on. I think the part, you know, I have listened back to our podcast recently. You know, obviously I've been very bored. And
so you are one listener.
Ourselves.
Good to hear.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good.
And I do recognize that we do need to be aware of when we show things, we have to remind people, we tell them as well what's happening, because I did just listen to our podcast and several times say, and look at this, and you see how this is doing this and this is doing this. So
right.
I've got to get better at that. We've got to, we've got to talk through two things.
We're not going to forget you, audio podcast listeners. Yeah. We hear you. We see you. We're going to work on making sure you can hear us.
We know you can't see us, but yes,
we see you. All right. So yeah, we'll pay attention to that. That's a good call, Brian. So good feedback from our listener, which was Brian listening to our own show.
Listener. Yeah.
So this is Brothers in Tech. You know, we don't just get here and just chit chat. We actually have a purpose for getting together. We talk technology. We're talking family, home, personal technology, not getting into the business, the enterprise. We really want to talk about real day-to-day useful technology and how people are using it, how we're using it, maybe some recommendations, thoughts we have on ways to help improve how you use technology in your life. And as we always say, it's to be a little bit of that go-to IT person in your own family or group of friends, which I know some of us have been in that role, have played that role before. We enjoy playing that role, but we also
some of us have.
No, I was saying family. I mean, I was just saying. I said
family.
Family. Yeah. No friends. No. But you know, we get those phone calls. People just need some help getting something set up. New technology. It's good to have a resource. Good to have a brotherhood and sisterhood of people that can help share and swap some ideas about how we can help in those situations. So,
and let's be honest, we get to talk tech, which is pretty fun as well. So
we enjoy it, and we would do it even if we had no listeners, which is not far off from the truth. So, I don't know.
We are testing that theory right now. Honestly,
I haven't even looked at the stats lately. I don't want to look at the stats. I don't know. I have no idea how many listeners we have.
Well, we don't need a calculator for them. You know,
no, probably not. Probably just a hand or two is what going to be able to help us get those numbers. So, all joking aside, Brian, we do want to talk about a specific piece of technology today. A lot of times we're talking kind of how to, some helpful advice on different types of technology. Today, we're going to talk about one specific technology, one specific product, more to the point, and that is the Apple Watch. As we're looking at all the things we could talk about from a home personal technology, I mean, I think you and I both just realized, look, the watch has become at least I can speak for myself, and I think for you, the watch has become part of my daily digital life.
Yep.
Maybe not to the extent that I thought it was going to be when I think the idea of a smartwatch was really started to get popular, and Apple released their version of the smartwatch called the Apple Watch. I think I find myself in a different spot using it than I had intended, but I do find it still be an essential thing, part of my digital daily life. Brian, are you kind of the same situation? It's a product you wear on a daily basis and use.
I do. I wear it daily. I'm not going to say I'm well, addicted to it's probably the wrong term, but
Mm,
I expect to have it on daily. I feel naked if I don't have it on. Of course, I was a watch wearer before,
okay.
and I felt like I needed to have a watch on all the time. So yes, I wear it daily. I am with you in that my reason for getting the Apple Watch initially was excitement about what it potentially could do and the fact that it had apps that could be built into it. And I thought there would be lots of other unique uses. Um, I don't think I've experienced those, but I will say on the flip side, the ones that I do use, I think, used more effectively than I thought I would,
Mm,
and have kind of become connected to it in different ways. So, I'm someone who initially was against text messaging, and I was against I was pushing away kind of having the phone on me all the time, and then I got to where everybody else is and that I feel lost without it. um, I kind of felt that way initially with the watch, to say, I don't necessarily need to be reminded of things when I don't have my watch or my phone with me. But now I realize that's exactly what it's for, and exactly how I use it, to kind of be a remote version of my phone,
mhm.
and to kind of have it give me some flags to say, things are happening, but not a lot that I engage with it with. And
Yeah.
it's more of a sign that other things, that I need to go to my watch or I need to go to my computer. For the most part, there are a number of things that I'm getting more and more comfortable with using on its own. But yeah, we can get into that a little further. But I will say, yes, the use case has changed from originally when I purchased it. But I will not say my love for it hasn't gone down. It's actually just become a much more regular part of my digital life. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So, when the Apple Watch was first announced, and I remember even watching the keynote where they really kind of rolled it out, a lot of energy was placed on the idea that you would be able to install, and you can install applications,
right,
basically extended versions of your phone applications onto your watch. So the idea is that if a developer builds an app for your phone, they have the option of also developing a watch version of that app. And if you install the app on your phone, you can also automatically have that same watch version of the app automatically appear on your watch. And it's something you would interact with. You can pull it up just like you can on a phone. Obviously, a much smaller screen and much more limited functions that the app may have, but you interact with it that way. Um, and it was impressive when you saw that, when you saw the demonstration, you saw all what different app developers could do. I don't know about you, Brian. I think a couple things were happening in that whole app situation, in that I can't remember the last time I personally ever went onto my watch and pulled up an app of any sort. It's like you said, it's not a watch, it's not a device I go in and intentionally interact with. Um, it has really evolved into more of a device that I've got it tuned and set to where it's going to notify me of the things I want it to notify me of. It's going to show me the information I need to see at those times. But that's pretty much it. I don't go in
mm.
seeking any new action or information on it myself. Is that kind of similar to where you are with it as
Yeah,
well?
I don't think I'm quite to the extreme you are. I do have a
Okay.
few applications that I will pull up, and I have them kind of in my favorites. I rarely ever go to the list of apps to kind of scroll
Mhm.
through and find something. It's usually a couple that I have on my favorites. But workout, which I would consider an app, even though it's built in, I use
Sure.
the workout app all the time. And it's pretty straightforward. Pull it up, and I select one of three workouts that I do, and I do like to track those. Timer, I use it for the timer a lot, and I consider that an app as well. So I pull that up and say, time this for 5 minutes, or if I'm
Mhm.
grilling, or if I'm cooking, or um, I'm back to coaching again, and if I have a drill that we're doing that goes a certain amount of time, really helpful for that. You can do that with lots of watches, but it's nice that the regular feature of the watch is still easily accessible.
Right.
Podcasts, I'll listen to podcasts with just what I do love is being able to go out without my watch on, either on a run or on a walk, and be able to listen with your wireless headphones to your watch. Now, I will say that feature is still not done very well at all. Apple has not solved that, about easily dragging something over to your watch and saying, "Great, it's now downloaded."
Yeah.
It just doesn't
I
work very well. But
I tried it for a short period of time, and I honestly just kind of gave up on it.
yeah,
I still have my phone with me everywhere I go, and my phone is still my player, so I don't even use my watch as a remote player. I have not given up on trying to load things onto it, and
yeah.
having it handle it that way. So that's
Well,
been a little disappointment for me, but
yeah, and I agree. It is well. So maybe part of what we should be saying too, Ellen, is if people were interested in the Apple Watch and you had kind of these, ideas as to how you would use it, let's maybe confirm or dispel some of those, because one of those would be, oh my gosh, I would love to be able to go to my phone, drag over a podcast or drag over a piece of music, head out the door and go, listen to that with my headphones and not without my phone on a run or something. It does not work that way. It does not work at all that way, unfortunately. Now, there are ways to do it. You can go in the podcast app and you can say, click on, yes, I want this podcast to be on my watch, and you'll see it kind of start to sync. But for one, the watch needs to be on the charger for it to happen, which is not what you're trying to do at the last minute if you're getting ready to walk out the door. And the other is that it takes forever. For a good long podcast, something that you might want to do, it takes a long time.
yeah,
They have not nailed that down. Well, I will say though, is if you are okay using it for a chunk of music that you always like to have on a run, that you can put over there once, and then it's always on there for every run that you go, great, it works fine. You leave your phone behind, connect to your watch with your wireless headphones, and you take off. If you have podcasts that you like to listen to that are coming out constantly, but you're not somebody on the day saying, "Ooh, I want to listen to today's podcast." If you want to listen to one that happened to come out in the last week, you can set it to say every morning, do a sync that kind of brings in the latest podcast or something. But that part they've got to figure out, because it really should be so much easier than that. It should be, I look at it, click and hold and say, throw to my watch, and it
yeah.
should be able to be there in 10 seconds. That's the way it should work, and it doesn't. And that's really disappointing. That part was very disappointed that I couldn't get that to work effectively.
Well, like I said, I gave up on it. Gave up on the idea of using the watch as a standalone media player. My hopes were
Yeah.
just like I've subscribed to a podcast. If I said, look, always take the newest one and throw it over to the watch automatically once I download it, it just doesn't work that way. And for me,
Yeah.
I'll get into some of my uses here in a moment, but I do sleep with my watch on to do some sleep tracking and also serve as my alarm. That means I have to charge it, while I'm getting ready in the morning, showering
Yep.
and so forth. So really nowhere in my workflow is it to where I can have it on a charger connected to my computer or set up and really orchestrate how I'm going to move things to it. So it just doesn't
Yeah.
work in the workflow. So it's been problematic on that end. A little disappointing,
Yep.
like you
Yep.
said on that.
I would agree. Yep.
Well, let's I tell you what, let's do. I want to hear just a little bit more about some other ways you're using it, and I'm going to talk about some ways I use it, and then we can talk about some new things that we hear are coming from some newer watches. I mean, I've got a relatively older one. I've got a Series 3 that I'm using. I've had for quite a while, since the Series 3 came out.
Yep.
It's getting a little long in the tooth. So, I mean, I'm probably within a year, probably need to look at doing an upgrade. What version of the watch do you have?
I have a 4. I have
Okay.
a Series 4. I had a Series 3 first. Bought a used one. The screen ended up coming off, but since I had bought it used and it was quite a ways away from the year, they would not do anything. Or if I was
Yeah.
going to replace it, was pretty much the cost of a new one. So I bought another used one. So both of mine have been used off of
Mhm.
eBay, I believe, a Series 4, and it's been great. It's been
Yeah.
really good. But yes, now it's 3 or 4 series back if you consider the
Yeah.
SE as something new. Um, now, Alan, would you say when you said yours is getting long in the tooth, do you notice a slowing of anything?
Hmm.
Because that's
Oh
one.
yeah.
Do you really? Okay. Because that's one thing I don't recognize is I don't seem to think that my watch gets slower like my phone would. I can see
Well,
it with my phone, and maybe it's because I'm not adding a lot of new apps and we're not
yeah,
taxing it in that new
could
way. But
be.
I don't feel
Well,
like
and
it gets any slower.
well, mine has always felt slow, but
Okay.
when I first got it, I mean, it seemed slow, but I also kind of was forgiving of it because it was a watch. And I'm like,
Yep.
if
Yep.
I'm pulling up a settings app on my watch, I mean, it's going to do the spinning for a while before it shows it. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm okay with that because I'm not used to anything else.
Okay.
Now, every other device around me has gotten faster and
I think
more responsive.
that's
So it's like the
that's
watch is
what's the
still like
problem.
one that I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm used to like if I go to open up an app, if I did open up one or even the settings app on the phone, on the watch, it just seems to take a really long time opening up.
Okay.
And there again, that may be another reason I don't really do a lot of app interaction because it's also really slow doing so.
Hmm.
But a lot of that I do feel like it's probably just, it's a 4 generation old watch at this point. Phones are
Yeah,
similar. I
but
mean, if you
I
get,
think what you mentioned is a pretty important thing for a lot of people to realize with something like this, that when everything else around you is getting faster, that our phones right now are light years faster than they were 10 years ago.
yeah,
And where at that time we expected a certain amount of time before an app opened. And we were okay with changing settings taking a little bit longer. Right now we're expecting everything to be a lot faster because most of them really, really are. And if you've still got, technology from how many years ago do you say the watch, your Series 3? How many years is that?
gosh, I mean, going on the idea if they release a new model
Like 4
approximately
or
every
5 years?
year, I mean, we're at least probably closer to 5 years old.
Yeah. And if you took a
Mhm.
4 or 5 year old phone, which mine's maybe 2 years old, maybe
Yeah.
close to 3, but you start to recognize that okay, this is not moving as fast as it once was. So I wonder. Like I said, I don't feel like mine, and maybe it's because of the things I do. I don't necessarily feel like it's slower than it used to be. Um, I think there are some things that I would wish it would do that I now see that others do. And I'm sure that the
Mhm.
newer ones are much snappier and I would recognize
Oh,
a
I'm
difference if I put one
I'm
on.
sure.
So,
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
well, let's talk a little bit about how we use them. So
Sure.
do you want me to go through or you want to go back and forth on a couple of
Um,
things?
I'll tell you what, let me just kind of hit mine because actually I don't
Okay.
think my list is very long. I have a very limited use of the watch. And like I said, I don't do a lot of interacting with it. Everything I pretty much use the watch for is an extension of my phone. And the things that I would normally go to my phone to do or have it prompt me on, I'm trying to push those to the watch. So sleep tracking is something, I can't,
Okay.
I don't do that with the phone. That's a watch exclusive kind of function that I use wearing my watch at night. So that does mean charging it in the morning, but
But let me ask you, Alan, so do you start the sleep charging or sleep cycle from your watch
no,
or do you start it from
mm-mm.
your phone?
I don't start it from anywhere. It's set to run in the background.
Okay.
It knows
Okay.
every night it's going to track my sleep, and the watch just acts as an extension to monitor everything on my arm.
But if you're going to look at the data, you're going on your phone.
I go on my phone. Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yep. Mhm.
So by that same token, I use the watch as an alarm. I love and I'm much better waking up with the alarm vibrating and getting me
Mm.
up on my wrist than I do with a loud sound coming from my phone or anything. So I prefer that, and that's why another reason I use the watch for that. And that's the reason I wear the watch at night. Um, I use the workout tracking as well, but I do use the
Mhm.
workout app, just like you mentioned, and I do obviously have it track. Um, I do keep a close eye on a lot of health related tracking. So obviously using the watch is a good tool for doing that. Beyond that, it really is all about text and email notifications. I mean,
Yeah.
really just, again, just a quick view to see is a text coming in? And if so, is it important? Can I tell who it's from? Same thing with emails. I have emails that will just notify me when a new one comes in, just so I can get a quick glance at it, whether I'm driving, whether I'm in a meeting or something, just so I can know if I need to address anything or not, be time sensitive to it. Outside of that, Brian, that's pretty much what I use my watch for. And that's enough.
Use it to
It's
tell
enough for
time?
me.
Use it to tell time?
Oh yeah, I do use it as a
Okay.
clock. Sure. Yeah.
You don't have that part turned off?
No, I don't have the clock turned off. So it is a clock, and I do use it also. I forgot to mention, but to actually unlock my phone, which is a function that I hope more people understand you can do. Is if you own both a watch and an iPhone, that you can turn on a setting to say, I want my Apple Watch to be the thing that lets me automatically unlock my phone. So it's a security measure, but instead of using either a Face ID or a passcode or even Touch ID, if you've got a little bit older iPhone, it could actually bypass all of that if you're wearing your watch and you've got that setting turned on.
Yeah.
Came in very handy with mask wearing. Until
Very
Apple
much so.
did roll out a feature recently to let you detect a mask on your face, or at least that'll be something that is going to be available soon. But before then, you could still say, look, as long as I'm wearing my watch and I've got the setting turned on, go ahead and unlock my phone. If my watch is on my wrist and you can see that the two devices are near each other, go ahead and unlock it. So even if I was wearing a mask over that time, it would just automatically unlock without using Face ID. So those are the ways I use it, the watch. Again, I don't go in and can't remember the last time I've actually gone in and physically like navigated into things I needed to do, other than telling it to record a workout, telling it to snooze on my alarm. That's basically the minimum amount of interaction I have with it. So yeah, I still feel like it's a worthwhile device for those purposes, because all those utilities are extremely important to me and are worth the cost I put into the watch. And plus it's a nice looking thing to wear as well. But I definitely do not use it to any other further degree, like probably a lot of other people do. So what about yourself, Brian? Anything to add to that for specific for you?
No, add to it. So yeah, workout obviously is probably the most used. Well, other than the messages, reading messages, and I like I kind of like, and then I also kind of don't like the fact that I can quickly view a message without having to pull my phone out, and know whether or not I need to direct my attention that way. Now, some might say I've already directed my attention elsewhere, and that's true. And that's one of the downsides, I think, is that you feel like you're always connected, even though my phone is always on me or close to me. I do have, I think you and I have talked about this before, Alan. I've actually never heard my phone make a noise because I've never had it turned. I've always had it silenced from the moment I got it.
Same here.
So I don't even know what actually, except for the alarm. I do have the alarm that'll obviously be used. And it's the same thing with my watch. I remember taking my watch out of the box, and it had some noises that it made initially to notify me. I immediately turned it off, and I have never heard it since then. So, so sound is not really an issue, but that also means I'm getting the vibration constantly that directs my attention to it. So one of the things, maybe just on a side, that for people that have this or are going to be getting an Apple Watch, I would go in and really dial in your notifications and say, what are the things that I actually want to be distracted by? If you've got a news app on your watch, those are great to see the latest news that come out, but that happens all the time. News is constantly happening. And I don't know if you're going to want that constantly pulling you aside, unless you set it up to say, give me once a day, give me the headlines or something else. So really dial some of those notifications in.
And here's an important point on that with notifications as well. By default, I think the default setting when you go to set up a new watch is it will allow you to mirror whatever your notifications are that you get on your phone. Now that may sound great, and that may sound like, oh boy, that's what I want. That's easy. I just want every kind of notification I get on my phone to also have on my watch. I learned pretty quickly after that, no, that's not what I want, because my phone, A, I've got a bigger screen, A, I'm less concerned about battery life, and C, I don't look at my phone every single time a notification pops up on the screen. But you're right. The watch is something where if I get a notification, the inclination is to go and look at it. So actually, I recommend going in and dialing back any notification that is not really something you would use the watch for. Now, for maps, if you're driving or traveling somewhere and you definitely want to be notified when there's a turn coming up and you want your watch to notify you, you make sure the map notifications are still turned on the watch. But if it's another one, let's say email is kind of an extreme one for me. I probably should not have email on my watch, but for some reason I can't quite turn that notification off yet. But for somebody who gets a lot of email throughout the day and, it doesn't feel the need to respond to everyone you get in right away, I'd turn that notification off, because all that's doing is every time it's checking in the background and getting those notifications and popping up on the screen and turning your watch on, which is all just chipping away at your battery life unnecessarily. So going into your settings, fine tuning those notifications is really important once you get a watch set up, or even if you've had one for a while and just never have gone in and tailored those. I do recommend doing that, and just find those those apps and notifications that really make a difference for you to be on the watch, as opposed to your phone or your computer or someone else. So it's good.
And I think what you mentioned earlier, just briefly mentioned about the fact that it's your phone is a bigger screen, is an important thing too, and we shouldn't really gloss over that. If I were to just mirror my phone and be notified of everything on my watch, I would actually take, I think, more time to go through those notifications on my watch. Whereas if you go to your phone, now you can actually see probably 5 or 6 notifications at once and go, none of them are important. On your watch, you actually have to flip through them because they only go one per screen, and that's just more time. And so I think that I dial mine back. The only thing that I get notified on is my home security, because I like to know, okay, a door just opened, which we do have it also turning off when we're here, so that I don't constantly be notified even when we're here. But if something happens, like somebody's at my doorbell, I like to be notified, because again, I don't have my phone chiming at me, and I actually like to have it face down so that it doesn't light up. That's the other benefit of the notifications, I will tell people, is that having a watch can actually extend the battery life of your phone, potentially, is if you have it set so that the watch is notifying you, meaning your phone screen does not light up. So it actually kind of defaults to where your phone doesn't light up every time a notification comes in. So that can potentially save you some battery life. Now, whether that offsets the battery life of the Bluetooth connection that you're constantly having with your phone or your watch, I don't know. But for me, it's nice in that I'm going to have them, and I only need to be notified of one of them. I don't need both coming on. So that's kind of helpful. So, so Alan, let me just give you a couple more that I use. So obviously messages is number one, workouts, notifications. I do actually use it quite a bit to control my music, not necessarily to listen from the watch, but I'll give you an example. You say you charge your watch in the morning because you're wearing it at night. I charge mine at night. I put it on immediately when I'm getting out of bed. And then even when I'm in the shower, if I have a little Bluetooth speaker in there, if I'm listening to a news podcast or something in the morning, or music in the shower, well, I don't want to get out of the shower and say next song or fast forward. I can do that with my watch, which is really, really helpful, or turn it up and down with the, the little, the wheel. Those things I find are really, really helpful to have, as I said, an extension of my phone, to where I don't want my phone anywhere close to that shower, but I want to be able to control what I'm listening to. The timers I mentioned, I use a lot. And I'll tell you the one thing, and this, I wouldn't expect you to be using it the same way, but my university went with a 2-factor authentication system about 1.5 years ago. And so anywhere I go on campus, if I'm teaching in a particular room and I want to log into that computer, it then sends me a notification where I have to verify. Well, it does it through my watch, which is fantastic. I can just look at my watch, click approve, and I'm logged in, because I actually don't like to take my phone when I go to classes. And so, it does have to have the phone to connect through, unless I have Wi-Fi, but I have the Wi-Fi to be able to get that same information. So it just makes it a lot easier rather than pulling it out and doing that. So that's really
authentication, helpful. Even verifying like Apple Pay purchases.
Yep.
I think those are all great ways to use the watch as kind of that ancillary device to kind of help.
Right.
Again, I mean, I know we're talking simple motions of whether you reach into your pocket and get your phone and press to approve something, but flipping up your wrist and touching a button on it is quicker, is easier, more
Yep.
convenient a lot of times. So yeah, any of the
Well,
authentication
yeah.
processes or verifying a purchase, if you have two-factor authentication turned on, again, two factors where you have two different ways that it's going to verify your identity. You may type in a password on a web page, but then if you have two-factor authentication turned on, it's also going to send a prompt to a phone or watch, whatever
Right.
device you've got nearby, and you have to approve it from there as well. Just another security
Yep.
layer, but the watch comes in really handy for them. Yeah.
And then lately with the the pandemic years, I use it for Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Anytime I see that I can use it to pay, that I don't have to get a card out, that I don't have to touch anything. I don't know. It has felt so much
It's
easier.
good.
It trained me initially to start looking for that, and it's super easy to be able to pay. So,
Yeah.
so those are the things I would say. I was trying to think of what other things I use with it. Those are the ones. I will say I do use the mail app, or maybe actually not the built-in mail app, but the Outlook app, which I've talked about on the phone. I still think is the best phone email app there is. But I'll use it occasionally if I don't have my phone close by and I just want to quickly see, do I need to go to my phone to look at the
Yeah.
email? Like, did that person email back? No. Okay. I'll pull that up to do that. But I don't reply to things. I don't like
True.
typing on
Yeah.
the watch. I don't like doing anything. So even quick messages would be the thumbs up, smiley face, whatever. So that I don't like to necessarily do. My fingers, I think, are maybe too
Yeah.
big and clumsy to do anything else with it. So I use those things. And for me, those are very, very useful. They're all incredibly
Sure.
helpful. I think personally, the way that I've seen Apple kind of change track a little bit in terms of the watch has been really to focus on health. I mean, that
True.
became, I think, their main focus. And what we're seeing is the new features that are rumored to come out. They're all about health, because I think just because what you said earlier, Alan, they initially thought, hey, we're going to give you something where you can actually download apps, you can make it a mini phone. And I think then they realized, wait a minute, people aren't going to use it that way, but yet we've already got them hooked with our notifications, and let's focus on the health. Because
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting them to be better than a Garmin or some of these other fitness apps or fitness watches, but they are. I mean, they just do a better job. They are
Yeah.
so much more sophisticated than a lot of those other wearables are right now, and they keep getting better. Fall detection, the
Yeah.
ability to get blood oxygen level measure, which of course other devices can do as well, but they built that into the new ones. They're looking at things like, I think, blood glucose is something that's coming down the road.
Yeah. Been hearing that.
These are all things that Apple does really, really well, and I think that when they made that switch to, we're going to make this something that is beneficial to your health and would potentially save a life, they kind of use that approach. They really hooked a lot of people, and I think
Well,
rightfully so.
yeah. You saw a big change in, I think, market share. I think you saw a big change in just public acceptance when it did shift into being more of a health and
Yep.
fitness related device. It was a little, I won't say it wasn't a joke. I mean, I think people saw the value in smartwatches even before Apple released their Apple Watch. But I know in the first year or two, it was kind of all right, we got an Apple Watch, and there's just a lot of comments from people about, okay, I got one, but I don't really use it for anything. Right? It's
Right.
just on my watch. I just use it as a nice watch. It wasn't until it really jumped in full tilt on health and fitness, Apple dedicating a lot of resources, all divisions to health within their products. Then I think that's when you started to see them show up on more people's wrist as just kind of a more of a standard with
Yep.
that. So you mentioned a couple things that you have been introduced in some later versions, and we are just, again, let's just note, you and I are on older versions of the watch. Ours is
Yep.
not the newer version at all. So they are up to the Series 7 is kind of the latest version. They also have an SE special edition, which was right before the 7, but really the SE and the 7 are kind of the two that they're selling right now as their newest
Right.
versions. Some of the features you mentioned, Brian, just a second ago with the health and fitness side of things are really only available in those newer ones. The fall detection and the blood oxidation level are both either a 7 or 7 SE has that.
Yeah, I think the blood oxygen is only on the 7, but the fall detection SE and 7, I believe, both
Okay.
have that. Altimeter, things like that. They've started to change to where it's not just when you're using a workout, but it actually is looking at your elevation changes, which again goes into the health because it's now looking at, well, how many stairs did you climb, and how
Right.
how quickly
Yeah.
are you climbing stairs, and all of that. So it's really looking at a lot of your movements and trying to get a better idea. And what's really cool about this from a exercise science perspective is what you're really getting is a major, incredibly big database of information about people's movements. And then 10 years from now, when we see which of these individuals developed Alzheimer's, which of these individuals ended up having heart attacks, and then they got the data now to go back 5-10 years of getting tons of data to go, wait a minute, we actually can start to predict people that are going to have this issue because we saw that they struggled on stairs and they didn't even realize. We were collecting that data because we have this health app that collects lots of different things, and that's what I think is really, really important. So when they're able to have more sensors like blood glucose or being able to see body temperature, these are some of the things that have been rumored coming soon. That just means there's more data, more a better picture of overall health. And if I can walk into a doctor's office in the future and let them scan my watch, and then the watch is going to tell them, ooh, wait a minute, we just saw an interaction of these 4 things. Let's get you a test on this. That's super helpful,
That's
right?
huge.
I mean, to have a better idea of what's happening. And people may think, well, that's privacy and I don't want people knowing about it. No, I absolutely want them knowing if
Well,
there's going to be a potential health issue.
no,
I would like
it's
them to
totally
know that more
still
than I do. So,
it's still users' choice on how they
yep,
share that data and
right.
make it available. But the fact that you could choose to do that,
Yep.
Brian, I'll just be happy if there's a way we could have our health data linked on our watch such in a way that I don't have to fill out forms over and over
Okay.
again at different healthcare
There you
providers.
go.
If
Yep.
just, the idea of centralized records that are shared between facilities could be facilitated so much more if the data is actually available on something you're wearing that can easily transmit and communicate. So yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of ways it could definitely keep going, but they're making some huge strides there for sure.
Yep.
I will say, Brian, for me, the couple of things that I wish I wish I was using more on the watch, or I just need to kind of train myself to use more. I think that the walkie-talkie function on the watch is one that I'm really intrigued by. And now that all the members of my family have Apple Watches, I should be using more for communicating between us. We just have not gotten the habit of doing it, but I know it was something I was pretty excited about when it came out for the Watch OS, but I just have not really made that leap to actually start using it. And again, all we're talking about is you can have a preset list of people that are like your favorites, and just pressing and holding allows you to talk into your watch, and it within moments relays that voice message right to pop up on somebody else's watch, and then they can do the same back. Very much like a walkie-talkie, not quite real time. It's a little bit of a press record, and then within a few seconds it's playing on the other one, but could probably come a lot more handy. I'm still just finding myself yelling up the stairs whenever it's time for dinner.
No, that I'll maybe disagree with you and think I feel like that's completely useless.
Really doesn't work for
I've
you.
tried it a couple times. The only time that I have used it, and I'll remember a time where it was maybe somewhat helpful, but I could have also done this by just calling my wife. Is we were trying to test out electricity, and I was trying to see whether a breaker was flipping something on completely the other side of the house, and we were like, oh, let's try this, right? And after we went through this whole ordeal of setting it up, and we were over there, and I was pushing and saying, is that the one? And she would push back and say that. And I was thinking, I also could have just had the phone there on speaker calling you,
real time,
and it'd been real time, and we wouldn't have had to push. And then I keep thinking, well, during the day, do I ever need at my work to potentially ping her and have that come up when she's at work. I don't think I ever would want that. I don't think she would ever want that. So that's the part I could see. Maybe if you have lots of kids and it's all about, intercom in the house. But yeah, I think that one was kind of a little gimmicky, and I'm not really sure it ever panned out for me. But
I do not hear a lot of people using it. So that's
No.
probably one of those features that sounded nice on paper, looked good in a demo, and just didn't really apply in a real world situation as much.
Right.
The other feature, Brian, that is just not available for my watch, because I think it's only on the newer watches, is and I know it's so simple an idea, but the hand washing. They put this in, of course, now that we're at the, hopefully, knock on wood, tail end of this pandemic, or at least things are starting to settle back out. It's maybe, hand washing is still public service announcement. Hand washing is still important, even when we're not in a pandemic.
Please do it. Yeah.
The idea that it would detect if your hands are kind of in a underwater or going to be washing, and then just give you a quick timer to make sure you're putting in the full 20 seconds of hand washing. Again, it's such a simple idea, but I remember as a kid sometimes having to remember that I needed to count or sing a song or something, remember how long to brush my teeth. And it seems like that should be a pretty simple thing to do, but sometimes we need reminders. And that's how I use the watch so much as a reminder. So, but I just think you have to have a newer version of the watch to have that capability.
So mine does. So it must be right at the 4. The 4 is where it started, and
mine does not.
And I turned it off because it annoyed me a little bit. But I will say I used it quite a bit initially because I almost felt guilted. I was like, I feel pretty good. No, wait, no, it's telling me I'm not done yet.
The watch does a really good job of guilting us. Okay, let's just be honest, dude, with the notifications and with getting us to stand up and whatever else too. It does do a lot of the notifications, but I'm okay with it. I kind of feel like that sometimes it has to be my little personal motivator to get up and move and stay active on things. So I'm okay with that.
Are there things that you, in terms of these new, so you mentioned hand washing, but are there other things of that list that we talked about earlier that are really deal breakers for you that you'd say that would get me to buy a new one? The blood oxygen level, the fall detection.
No. All those are great. Charging. Believe me, I'm not going to be opposed to any of those features, but none of them are ones I say, oh, I've got to upgrade for that. No, really, my whole purpose on when I do an upgrade is just because mine is long in the tooth, and that's it. All of the health tracking functions, I love everything it can do. Nothing resonates with me immediately today as like, this is something I have to have. Now, as I continue down my aging pathway, I'm sure some of these things I'm going to be a little more keen on keeping a track on, but as of today, I'm okay.
Well, there's one I will say had me really, really tempted to get the latest one, and that's the always on display.
Okay.
That one to me is, so for those that don't know, the up through Series 6, the way you see your screen is either to tap on the screen to wake it up or to turn your wrist, depending on if you have that feature on. And I find that part, that may be where I see some of the slowness happening in my watch, where I find myself having to do it maybe 2 or 3 times to try to, to turn it on. And that kind of does away with some of the benefit that I like to have. I like to be able to see that notification in a meeting and not have people know that I'm seeing it, and me flipping my wrist or reaching down there and tapping it is kind of a giveaway.
It's a little obvious.
But the always on display means that even when it's off or not, not awake, you can still look and see the time, or you can still see kind of a less bright version of what's there. So the worry was that, you needed to save battery life, and we haven't talked about battery life, but that I think was the biggest fear that I had getting this watch initially was, wait a minute, I'm going to have to charge this thing every day or maybe every 2 days at a max. And, battery life is still not good. It's still 2 days, maybe a day and a half with all the notifications we have going on now. And always on display was going to make that less, but luckily it also increased the battery. So it basically a break even. So the 7, and I'm sure everything going forward will stay with the always on display, which I think is really, really beneficial. Then it becomes more like a regular watch that also has these other features rather than simply a digital device that you're trying to work with as a digital device. So, So that's one that
Good
I
point.
would
No,
like
that
to
makes
have.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Brian, I thought maybe kind of nice to, we've talked about our own personal use of the Apple Watch and kind of our perceptions and wish list for it as well. There are a couple things, little tips and tricks with the Apple Watch that I still have a kick showing people that you can do this with your watch, because I think a lot of people get so used to using it for the more routine things that there's actually some really interesting little tips that you can incorporate in your watch. So I thought, let's hit a couple of those. Some of
Yeah.
these were actually kind of new for me too, when I was kind of going in and researching them, but fun things you can do with the watch, or useful tips that might be helpful for you. The one I always, whenever somebody doesn't know that the watch can do this, I love showing it off as a demo, is using your watch, your Apple Watch, as a remote viewfinder for an iPhone camera. Okay. So think about this. You got the family photo that you're taking, and you're going to set up your iPhone on a little tripod, to take a photo. And it's one of those where you can put on the timer, because the iPhone camera has a little timer button on it for, give yourself 10 seconds or whatever time you need to get back in the shot with the rest of your family. But the watch, if you've got your photo or your camera app on your iPhone, you can go to your camera app on the Apple Watch, and you will see what the viewfinder of your phone camera is seeing at that moment. That to me is still the coolest thing. I love it.
It's very cool.
It was great in a demo when it was first announced. Do I use it often? No, there's not that many times I need to see a remote viewfinder, but it is really cool to know that kind of functionality really works together with the phone the way it does. So I love that.
Yep. Yep. No, I think that's really, really cool. I had never used the viewfinder remote.
Mm-hmm.
I had used initially just to take a picture with my watch, which is great.
Yep. You can do that as well. If you've got
set it on the
mm-hmm.
the mantle to be able to take a
Yep.
picture, and you be the one that
that's
times
true.
it. So.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be with the timer. It could just, if you just got your phone somewhere, but you want to get away from it, or you want to put it up in a place and just kind of watch it remotely, then you can actually take the photo from your watch and hit the button. It'll take it on your phone, but you trigger it from your watch. Great things, great integration with the camera in the Apple Watch app on that.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple things on telephone calls, which I think are really interesting as well. Yep. This was a new one for me. I did not know this, but so the idea is you can put somebody who calls you on hold, which I did not know was possible. But the idea is that if you see a phone call coming in and you see it on your watch, it's a phone calls coming in. There's an option on your watch where you can say, I want to answer on iPhone. And what that does is the person calling you is going to hear sound letting them know that they've been put on hold. And then you've got time to go get to your phone. Yeah, I see you're calling me right now, Brian, and I'll
let you do it. I'll let you try it.
Answer on iPhone. So I just did answer on iPhone, and it's put you on hold. And I can let you sit there on the iPhone for however long I want. You're still on hold. So that way, when I do get to the phone, you're still there. See, I think that's great, because again, how many times have we thought about it? We're in a meeting, we're in a situation where.
By the way, that's what happens
right there. Yeah.
That means I'm on hold.
So it's
yep.
letting you know you're on hold. So there again, I know when we see a phone call coming in on our watch, we think we have to immediately scramble to our phone to answer it, or if we want to answer it on the watch, if you choose to do that. I love knowing that there is an option. You got to hit the little button with the dot with the 3 dots in it. Press that. One of the options is answer on iPhone, and just know it's going to put that caller on hold until you do have the time to get to your phone and answer it from there, which is great. So did not know that. Really cool. That was brand new for me as of today. So
yeah, that one was new to me as well. The one I did know about that I thought you were going to go with when you told me was the ability to quickly silence your watch. So you and I don't think we have any need for this because our watches never had sound on it. But if you were someone who uses sound on your watch to have a little notification, a little ding whenever you've got a message, or you've got an alarm that might turn on because you accidentally set it for a certain time. Let's say that you're in a meeting and the call comes in, and the call is kind of ringing on your watch. If you put your hand directly over, just cover your watch, it silences anything that's happening. So it recognizes that, hey, listen, I just got darkness just came about over the watch, so they want me to shut up, and it'll silence your watch, which I think is genius. And I will say
Well,
it
just
also works
so
with
intelligent.
vibration. So even though
Mhm.
I have vibration on, which I do, and the call is coming through, I can just do that, and it stops vibrating as well. So I think
Okay.
it actually will pretty much just
It'll stop
silence
the
any sort
vibration.
of
So it'll silence your
notification.
phone, silence your
I
watch
believe so.
altogether. So just
I'm pretty
covering it,
sure.
just putting
Yep.
your hand over
Yep.
it, right
Super
over it
slick.
like that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Just covered
it's neat.
up. So yeah.
Um,
Alan, I've got a
we
couple that I want to bring going. If you want to add one, and then I'll bring one more.
yeah, let me do this one just because we talked about
Okay.
battery life so
Oh
much.
yeah.
It's been coming up, and there is, just like on your phone, on your iPhone, there is a kind of a power saving mode that's meant to drain your battery less vigorously. So extend the battery life on any. If you go into your phone, you can turn on the low battery mode. It's going to turn off a lot of background functions and things that might be sapping away at your battery life and giving you kind of extended life with your battery. The watch kind of has a similar mode. You can turn on the power reserve mode. Um, and basically that's just a way of saying, hey, look, I want to try to preserve as much battery life on my watch because I may need it more regularly later today. So I want to go ahead and go into
Yep.
that power reserve mode. And basically it's just you're swiping up from the bottom of your clock face and there's a battery percentage. If you swipe left to right on it, it turns that battery power reserve tab to turn it on or off. And again, it's
Yep.
just a low power mode for functioning with your watch. I think it really just has a low power mode for showing the clock face.
Yep.
It's all about
And
saving
that's
battery life for you.
yeah, and that's actually what it does. Just realize if you do that, the only thing that will work on your phone at that point is a little green digital time will pop up. So
Yep.
you'll still be able to see your time.
Right.
That's it. That is all
Yeah.
that will
So think
happen.
about it. If you're in a situation where, um, you're not going to be needing really your watch, you're not needing notifications, you're not needing anything, but you want to extend the battery life as long as you can.
Yep.
Put it in that power reserve mode. Use it as just a simple clock on your watch, and that's it. And then when you're in a situation, let's say you're traveling and you really don't want to be notified while you're driving,
Yep.
or anything else, or maybe you're going on an airplane and you want to put it in a mode where it's not going to have any communications. There's just ways to do that, and it just gives you a chance to preserve that battery life until you do need it later in the day or evening. So yeah,
Yep. And that
I like
that
that
is
as well.
what is the beauty of having a computer watch is that
Mhm.
all of those things become possible, and there are ways of doing shortcuts, there are ways of adding on additional features and everything, which is great. You have a normal watch and you have what that normal watch will do, and that'll do it really, really well. This is one
Yeah,
of those adaptable devices.
yeah,
Let me give you a couple more things, and
sure.
these are things that are really I thought were really niche uses, but incredibly helpful for me. One is that the watch itself can become a flashlight. And if you
Oh
haven't
yeah.
used that before, the screen itself can brighten so that you can at least be able to see. So I walk my dog in the mornings, and of course, lately it's been very dark in the mornings, and we get to a certain area. I really don't like carrying around a flashlight myself. I don't think to do it. I often don't even carry my phone with me because just out in the morning and have my watch. But to click the little flashlight on your menu tray. And the other thing that people may not recognize is when you do that, it'll be somewhat bright, but if you click it again, it goes full brightness. And that
Mm,
helps me to help pick up after my dog and be able to see things on the ground. So that's kind of helpful.
good.
Um,
Yeah.
Last one I wanted to mention, Alan, and this is one that I just found out about just a few weeks ago. Um, so you probably know that you can find your watch. I'm sorry, you can find your phone from your watch, right?
Yes.
So if
Hmm.
you lose your phone in the house and you don't know where you put it, you swipe up and do the little ping and it will start beeping at you, right? It's easy to be able to find your phone. I use it all the time. What I
Oh, do
didn't
you
realize, and
use it quite a
yeah,
bit, huh?
I,
So you
I
always
do
use that
actually. I
phone.
use that part quite a
Yeah,
bit. It's like, oh, where did I put
sure.
it? Oh, great, there it is.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize it would do, and I don't know if you knew this or not, maybe you did, but if you do that ping of your phone, Alan, um, let's see. So it's the phone, the picture of the phone with the little speaker, vibration things on the side. If you do that, so I'm going to do that real quick. If I click it once, there's my
Mhm.
phone. It's telling me, hey, by the way, it's there. Okay. And I can do it again and
Mhm.
it'll keep calling to me. But if I click and hold on it, It does that, but it also will make the flash on my phone blink. So if I do
Oh,
that in a
didn't know
dark
that.
area, part of the house, it will start flashing at me. So it's like an extra way of finding your phone, not just where it is, but you can actually maybe see it light up a
You're not
little
just
bit. So
listening for the sound. If it's in a darker area or
yep,
somewhere that light would show from so it's the little flash light on the phone
the
will
little
actually.
the flash on for the camera
Yeah,
will flash as you
that's
do that.
great.
So
I did not know that.
incredibly
That's new.
cool. And this all these things are things that what's funny is that Alan and I talked about before the show. Apple is not very good at telling you what cool things their stuff does. And I
Yeah,
think part of it is the allure. They actually want you 2 years into a device finding something cool and stumbling on it and saying, I still love Apple. This is great. But I do think they would be so much better if they would, you know, roll out these things and find creative ways for you to stumble on them rather than, maybe you don't have to. I mean, you could have a tips thing that says, hey, by the way, let me introduce you to everything on your phone. Well, people ignore that sometimes and want to just get to use
yeah,
their phone. But it should be like every couple months, if it realizes you have never done X, it should in the morning tell me, by the way, I've seen you've never tried this before. Let me show you why
hmm
this would be helpful. Or
oh yeah,
I
that
see a
would be good.
behavior where you've been trying to find your phone. Did you know that if you pressed it longer, you would actually be able to, see it with a flash? I think they'd
Yeah,
be, really beneficial to let us know about some of these things because it's amazing
agreed.
that as a Mac person, as a iPhone person, as an Apple person for many, many years, there are still some things that people tell me, and I say, "Really, it can do that?"
Yeah, I
It'd
know.
been great to know yesterday. So,
Lot of long clicks, double clicks, or swiping actions that just you sometimes have to
yeah.
just go and just try everything and see what you can do with it. It would be
And
nice
again,
to have
that's
that a little
probably
more
what they
called out to
want, right? They
attention.
probably do want
It's
you
what
to
they
do that,
want, but
but
people like you and I, we'd like to know these things a little sooner than later, so get to use them as
we're
quickly as we
impatient.
can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
Well, I
Alan,
think in
real quick,
general,
would you?
yeah.
Are you
Go ahead.
keeping your watch? I guess there's the takeaway. Are you keeping your watch, and do you see yourself getting a new watch?
Yeah, the Apple Watch was the one device before I got one that I said, you know what, I don't
I
need
don't need
this.
it.
I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm not a watch wearer. I've got my phone. I carry my phone everywhere. I have no need for the watch. When I got a watch, within weeks, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm never taking this off. This is good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was even before I really started exploring everything I could do with it. So no, I'm pretty much hooked on it. I'm set with it. I'm locked in.
Yep.
For the reasons I mentioned earlier, even though I don't use anywhere near the full capacity of what you could use on a watch, the things I use it for are enough to justify its existence. And yeah, if I start to walk out of the house and it's not on my wrist, I'm right back in the house to get it because I don't leave for the day without it on.
Yep.
So what about you?
Yep. No, for sure. I don't foresee myself not having this on anytime soon. So, and I keep telling myself that I would love if they would increase the battery life. That's still my wish list to say, give me a week with
Yeah,
with my battery
I
so that
know.
I don't have to worry about. But I also think that there's really not a reason for them to do that. I mean, for people that are thinking that, hey, battery life's going to keep getting better and better and better, I'm not really sure there's that much reason for them to do that because if they make you keep it on for a week, then charging becomes even more of a pain, I think, because you have to really think about like, oh, is it Sundays that I charge my watch or I really am waiting for it to die? And they don't want you to have your watch dying. They want you to just be in the habit of every night I'm charging or every day when I shower, I'm charging. And I also think there's some things that the watch does only when it's charging, like we said before, downloading podcast and downloading music and all that stuff happens only when it's charging. So they want you charging because
Yeah.
they want to be able to update your apps. They want to be able to do these other things. So I don't foresee them going beyond the 2-day charge for quite a while. I haven't even really even reason to do it. I'm sure they could do it right now if they wanted to. They could build in a solar portion to it and have it kind of extend that life. But I wish they would. I think it would be really cool to be able to say, I'm going to go travel and don't have to worry about charging. And I'm going to go camping for the next week and be totally fine, still having this,
Yeah.
life-saving device with me.
It's true.
So, that's kind of a wish list, but I don't foresee that coming. I don't think they really need to. And I think it may be
Yeah.
counterproductive for them if they did. So
Possibly
But
so.
I'll have one. I'll have one, and I'm probably a year away, maybe, if for another one. And I'm excited
Same
that
here.
as the health benefits continue to build, that this just becomes the health the health platform that I have, and has and it's getting all sorts of information about me that hopefully is going to be helpful in the future. So
Great.
I think it's great.
Well, that is the Apple Watch. So that's all we wanted to do this episode, is just kind of talk about the state of the Apple Watch, our use of it, our perception at this point, and how we feel like it's come along, and a few tips and tricks about using it as well. So, Brian, as always, if anybody's been listening to our conversation for the past hour and has some of their own tips and tricks about the Apple Watch, or maybe questions about use, or even some of the new models, we didn't really explore too much of the different models that are out there now.
Yeah.
Probably within months, I'm expecting we'll probably hear updates about some new ones.
A few more months. Yeah, there'll be a new one. Yep.
But in the meantime, if anybody does have some questions, how can they go about getting a hold of us? For that?
Yeah, send us an email at info@themesh.tv. And, as Alan said, tell us, we'd love to hear some other tips, since Apple's not very good at, telling us about these tips. If you've stumbled across some other things that either the Apple Watch will do, or the phone, or the interaction of those things, we'd love to hear about it. If you're someone who is moving away from the Apple Watch, we'd love to hear why. And, what is it that's in your wish list of being able to kind of either bring you back, or what are you going for? What are you moving on to? So info@themesh.tv. You can also visit us online at www.brothers-n-tech.com. That's where you'll find our previous episodes, but then also we're going to be bringing in kind of reviews and tips as we go along, to be able to share there as well, so you don't have to wait for the podcast in order to get some info. So brothers-n-tech.
All right. Good deal. Well, we're going to go and wrap up this conversation. We will be back next week with another family, home, personal tech related discussion and topic. So in the meantime, please visit the website, or drop us a note in contact forum if you've got any questions or ideas for future episodes. We'd always love to hear those as well. So, all right. Well, until next time, this has been Alan Jackson, Brian Jackson with Brothers in Tech. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.